Welcome into the Marriage Talk podcast. It is great to have you with us. Thank you for subscribing on whatever podcast platform you enjoy the most, or maybe you're watching us on the Marriage Talk YouTube channel. Whatever the case, we are glad to have you along. Bill Hobson here, joined by Jay and Laura Laffoon, and you can find out more about their marriage ministry online at jayandlaura.com. It's the new year. It's the future. The future is here. It's 2024. If you'd have told high school senior 1986 Billy Hobson that the year 2024 was going to be part of my life, I would have thought a couple things. One, we would be wearing spacesuits, and we definitely would be flying around instead of still waiting at red lights. So, but we're here in the future, and I want to start our new year, new you conversation with what I think is the existential, most important question any married couple can deal with. How long is too long for the Christmas decorations to remain up? What's the cutoff date?
I have to tell you, I had a hard, fast rule because I'm married to Betty the Elf's sister here. She's Christmas crazy. And so we put our Christmas decorations up on the day after Thanksgiving. Okay. That was her tradition. I'm happy with that. But my whole thing was they have got to be down before January 1st.
Before the 1st, okay.
Yes, because we cannot carry it into the new year.
However,
we had grandbabies, and we're not the only grandparents in town. And so our kids come to our house on New Year's weekend for Christmas.
Or last year it was like January 7.
And so I acquiesce, being the good husband that I am, and being the great husband that I am.
Friends, though, they live in Tampa, and they put up their tree at Halloween, and they decorate it for Halloween. Then they take those decorations down and decorate it for Thanksgiving. They leave it up until Valentine's Day.
Yeah, that's just sick and wrong.
That's why most of the weird news headlines come out of Florida.
I would do it. It's just a decoration.
But we do not have a Christmas tree, Bill.
No.
We have 3. We have our traditional tree.
Okay.
We have our traditional tree, which has all of our traditional lights and our traditional
big tree.
It's a big tree. It's got Jesus on the top. She added bows this year, red bows, which look really nice. Then, and this was partly my idea.
Right.
We travel so much.
It was his idea
that we get ornaments from the towns that we go to, like a Savannah or a Miami or wherever. And so we were collecting tons of those. And I said, why don't we get a little tree to hang our travel ornaments on? So we got it's maybe three feet high.
Yeah.
Well, then there's another tree that we had to let our grandbabies decorate.
It's a tree that's part of our everyday decor in our family room. It's just a tree. So they just decorate it for Christmas, and then all those decorations come down. The tree stays.
That tree stays. Yeah, the other ones go. But yeah, so 3.
Okay,
and
I would say 2.5.
I do know people who have, almost half a dozen trees in their house because they have
full-size trees.
This window, that window, this entryway, that entryway, whatever. And I'm like, there's just got to be a cutoff. Now, what's yours?
There's only one Bronner family, and that's the Bronner family with the big Christmas store. We don't need any knockoff Bronner families with a tree in every window, you overachievers, the Griswolds. Yes. Since we're empty nesters, we have really downsized. I do love the full-size tree with all the decorations on it, but we found that over the years, that the more involved I attempted to be in the decorating process, the more frustrated we both would get, because I could not gain committee approval with wherever I hung anything. Like if it goes on this branch, then truly Jesus was not born. So I kind of recused myself, and I would watch the decorating process with one eye while watching some sort of a sporting activity with the other eye. And now that it's just Ellen and myself here, we have a kind of a half-size tree that's decorated very nicely but very small, and it's just kind of the two of us. And when the kids come, and when our grandson comes over, he'll just adjust. He's going to adjust to that tree. So We still have the big one back in storage, but we haven't put it out in a few years. And I found that the exchange of ornate decoration and the trade for a player to be named later called Peace in the House is a pretty good trade. We'll take it.
My favorite memory of a tree was my grandma on my mom's side. She had a basically a tinfoil tree that she had a circular light with 3 different colors that it would go red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue.
Understated. Understated.
Yes.
So Laura, if he's not sitting there next to you and you're solely responsible for taking down all of this stuff, when would you take it down if there weren't the policy in place of January 1?
I would take it down after my kids leave. You know, if they leave on a Sunday, then it's going to be the next weekend. I'm not going to do it during the week. I need time to take all my decorations down.
Yeah, because we
So-
decorate everything.
So if they come for a week, you know, if our family Christmas ends up being a weekend and they leave Sunday afternoon, it's going to come down the next Saturday. That's kind of the way I am. But he wants it down the minute they leave. So yes, I would, you know, I give myself some time to take it all down.
But like I said, you got to remember she's Buddy the Elf, and she's Christine Kringle.
Actually, before we had the grandkids, I was fine with New Year's, taking them down New Year's. That's kind of like, it's the new year. It's let's get the new year started. We don't need Christmas up anymore. But now with the being flexible, when they leave, you know, it can come down.
Well, and that New Year's process does need to be completed before kickoff of whatever favorite bowl game might take place. So there's a little bit of time pressure on there, but here we are now. We're going to make an assumption that as you are tuning into the podcast, that in some way, shape, or form, maybe with great joy and exuberation, or maybe you're limping and injured, you made it through the holidays. And perhaps there were a few moments where you wondered if that was going to be the case. Maybe
Touch
you,
and go, a little touch and go.
yeah, a little touch and go. I was never really certain about that. Maybe you look back on the last couple of weeks or maybe the last month and you recall some moments that you wish you could take back, or maybe you recall a lot of moments you would just love to repeat over and over again, right? So everybody has a different experience, but as we embark into 2024, we see that a third of the commercials on TV are all about weight loss and fitness and the whole new you and all that. Let's kind of talk about the new year as a potential, maybe a soft reset for the relationships, for the marriages. And where do you folks want to take this conversation, the new year, the new you?
For me, you know,
the new you plural.
yeah.
Yes.
Use.
Use. We, you know, I love the new year because whether it's for us or me personally, I always feel like it's a great reset. It's a great reset, you know, and I try and give myself, you know, what's something that you want to get, a new habit you want to get into your life in this coming year. Last year I tried to get way more organized with my work list, my actual, like my job list, not just work around the house, but trying to be more organized and check things off a list. And I have a notebook, I write everything down. I actually have a task board in Google. So that was my thing for that. So for me, it's personally, it's a reset. And I think for marriages, it can also be a reset for this relationship. You know, this year, last year, let's move on and let's set some goals for this year and some habits that we want to put into our relationship this year.
And one of the things as authors and speakers, we're kind of words people. And so we like to pick a word of the year for our marriage.
Oh.
Some years it's growth. Some years it's health. Because, you know, even as people who focus on marriage all the time, our marriage goes through seasons just like everybody else's. And so there have been years where we like, you know, our marriage needs to get healthy. It's not been healthy. Thankfully, it's not been, you know, disastrous, but you know what I'm saying? We've just had some habits creep in that aren't very healthy. But sometimes we'll pick a word like peace or diligence or intention. There are a lot of words you could think about that for the year, we're going to focus on this in our marriage. And it gives us, anyway, a place to come back to. How we, you know, maybe we're on spring break and we're sitting on the beach and we could just stop for a second and say, hey, you know that word that we've been focusing on? How are we doing on that? And it's not some big monumental discussion, but it's almost like a rudder that's going to steer us for the year and keep us on track towards something that we want
And
together.
sometimes we've had a year, a word individually, and then we've had a word together, my word for 2024 is grace. Because I know that in this coming year, there are going to be some difficulties where I'm gonna have to give a lot of grace. I know there's things that are already out there that are coming that I'm gonna have to give a lot of grace. So and I write that in my journal. I make it my screensaver for the first month of the year so that I have it ingrained in my head, that 2024 is going to be the year of grace, that I've got to give more grace in 2024.
And my personal 2024 word is, what in the world is going on?
That's more
Chaos.
that is
Yeah, chaos. There we go. Chaos. But for many people that words become touchstones. It's like what do you call your wife? Do you call her dear? Do you call her honey? Do you call her, by her given name? Those are touchstones that make a big difference.
We spent roughly the first 7 minutes talking about the fun of Christmas tradition and Christmas cleanup. Is this the time when you would maybe suggest for couples that they consider some relationship cleanup if there have been some bumps in the road, not just in the last couple of weeks, but maybe over the last year where things were not great? Is this that time to really dig into what did happen and formulate a plan to not have it happen again?
There's no question. There's a lot of ways that we can do that. And I think every marriage that wants to stay healthy needs to do that, because even if it's small bumps in the road can still throw your car out of alignment. We all have bumps in the road. You can't go through a year without bumps in the road. And so we've basically got 3 very easily attainable ideas on how to do that thorough reset, if it were, that let's get to the heart of the matter. And the first one, and Laura and I do this a little differently, but is a devotional.
Well, we have done it a little differently.
Right. Is to have a devotional that you read together. Could be something as simple as Our Daily Bread. That's a devotional that literally takes 1 minute and 30 seconds. But yet it's always chock full of very good meat, even though it's called Our Daily Bread. But to do something spiritual together, it doesn't have to be this monumental, we're going to study 5 hours every Sunday afternoon. No. But to do something on a devotional level.
Right. And we've been, we're now into our 40th year. We celebrated 39 back in December. And for 39 years, we've always done devotions. We've always talked about but we enjoy reading different things. He loves the Daily Bread. I like to find different books and different authors that I can read through, and I pick different ones every year. A couple years ago, I did read through the Bible in a year. So but we always talk about what we're learning. But we decided back before Christmas, I had 2 devotionals that I couldn't decide what did I want to do in 2024. And I said to Jason, if I got both of these, would you read one? And he's like, well, I said, you could read one in 2024 and then we could switch in 2025. He's like, well, why don't we do something different and read read the same devotional for a year? I was like, oh, that might be so. Oh, wow.
So Bill, we'll do a podcast in 3 months to see if we've stuck with that, right?
But before and after picture.
Yeah, so we are in 2024. We're gonna venture into the unknown. I mean, we hear couples always have, they've done devotions together. It's just not been what we wanted to do or what we felt like fit who we are, but we are going to try something different, which again is a good thing to do in a new year, is to say, let's do something a little different this year. Let's try it.
We're going to spice up our spiritual life.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's talk that through a little bit, because there may very well be some couples that are listening right now who think that is such a good idea, but they don't know where to start. There are 7 million different books out there that you could choose from. Not all of them would be as helpful as some others, or healthy as some others, right? We've had on this program some authors who would be wonderful choices to get started. Maybe you've never read the 5 love languages. Maybe that's the starting point, or some other form of devotional book. But how would you advise couples to make sure that what they are choosing, it's a great step that they're choosing to do this. So let's make it the most beneficial step.
Well, they could start with this devotional called 365 Daily Readings for Busy Couples by Jane Laura LaFoon.
There
We
you
have
go.
that one. But
It's actually called Celebrate Your Marriage.
well, whatever. It's called Celebrate Marriage. I don't remember the title of it. But
Again, I think you want early wins. So start with something simple.
Mhm.
Our devotional is very simple. You can find it on Amazon, whatever, but our daily bread is free. One of my favorites of all time is by Oswald Chambers, called My Utmost for His Highest.
Yep.
I read that and I get chills. And again, if they're not long readings, but man, you think about it all day. They're so profound. And so I would,
we're actually starting, we're doing in 2024, we're doing one with Bob. It's Bob Goff. I just love the way he writes. And then the other one that we'll do next year is by Max Lucado.
and I would say if there are those questions, email us
Mhm.
and we can help guide you. You know, we'll tell us what your likes are. What do you like to read? You know, is one of you more wanting to do this than the other? And then I think what you've got to do is you've got to pick a time of day that you're going to do it. And for us, it's morning, first thing, because so many days by the end of the day, you know, while we can be night people, our mental focus is much sharper in the morning. So before we leave for the work, we're on it. We've read it and we've talked about it a little bit.
I think another good way to find a book that is to ask your friends. People that you
that you trust.
People that you trust, people that you know may know that I know they do devotions together, and I know, you know, so but you want to. And even you can do this on Amazon. You can read through the table of contents. You can look through it. You can look at some clips. You know, one of the ways I get books to read all the time, whether they're fiction or nonfiction, is on Facebook. People tend to, especially at this time of year, they go, here was my list in 2023 that I read. Here's my list I'm reading in 2024. And you kind of look at your friends on Facebook, you go, that one looks interesting. And then I go look it up, put it on your if you have a Goodreads app, you can really get on there and look at a lot of different things. You know, ask your pastor. I mean,
there's a novel concept.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of great devotionals, but you're right, you do want to be careful about the different devotions that you do look at, and are they actually, you know, if you're looking for marriage devotions, you know, Google Christian marriage devotionals. However you want to figure that out, but you can get and look for those authors that maybe you've heard of before, like a Gary Smalley, a Gary Thomas, a Gary Chapman. They're all Garys. Max Lucado.
Yeah. I think another thing that, go ahead.
If the book is not written by Gary, is it still potentially good, or is that automatically a disqualifier?
Potentially good. Another thing, I actually had a friend this morning text me, and he's a newlywed, and he said, Jay, I want to sign up for Celebrate Your Marriage conference. And I think another way for people to really reset their marriage is to sign up for a marriage retreat or a marriage conference. If your church is doing one, goodness gracious, don't let that slip by, because you're talking about other people that are in your church that want to have great marriages, and your pastor is saying, I want my people to have great marriages. That's our first choice. If your church is doing any kind of a marriage retreat or conference or getaway or even just a date night, go. But if they don't happen to be doing that, there's tons of great conferences out there. And what this does, I'm a big believer in the power of anticipation. The power of anticipation. That when we set something out in front of us and we anticipate it, and we rejoice that this is going to happen, and now we're a month closer and a month closer and a month closer, we fix our thoughts on what that's going to be like and what that's going to do. And we have a lot of people that come to our conference that come every year. It's just a no-brainer. This is our annual checkup. And you know, we take our car in, we take ourselves into the doctor, our eyes, our teeth, whatever. And they just said, you know, this is our annual time where we take a look at the past year of our marriage and say, okay, what was good, what was bad, and here's where we're going to do moving forward.
And that is a really good thing to do, especially in this month of January, is to take some time on these weekends. I know there's football, but to take some time and really sit down and map out your year. You know, maybe there is a marriage retreat that you want to, or maybe you just want to get away as the two of you, just the two of you with no agenda and nothing that you want to. So set aside, when can that happen? What?
Wait,
is
wait,
the
wait,
weekend
wait,
that
wait,
can
wait,
happen?
wait, wait. If they're a couple, then there's a woman, then there's always an agenda.
No,
Okay,
there's
just kidding.
Not necessarily, but set that in, go ahead and put that on your calendar at the beginning of the year. Put down these things that will be really good for your marriage. We want to go to a conference. Here's one that we found and it's here. And maybe in the fall, we want to get away for a weekend, just the two of us, with no agenda, not to a conference, just the two of us to a cabin in the woods or whatever it might be. And put that on the calendar and begin to map out that year for your marriage.
And one of the things that we encourage couples to do regarding the power of anticipation is to talk about it. What are we going to do as we're driving to the conference? Can we stop at this restaurant? I've always heard it was a lot of fun, a great place to eat. Or can we go to this little sightseeing thing? What do we want to do? And all those things that you talk about and all those things you kind of add to the trip, build the anticipation even more. Getting the information in your email about, how to register for the conference or how to register at the hotel. Let all those things be things you do together, even though probably one of you is better at it than the other. Sit down at the computer and go, oh, we just did it. It's powerful, even though it seems like it's very mundane.
And there is something to be said for the act of investing in your marriage.
Huh?
Just literally saying, I care enough about us that and I'm going to allocate, or we're going to allocate some of our income to attend this retreat or this conference, or to do this special thing that perhaps we haven't done before, because I know we can use that input from those that are going to be teaching, or even the others that are going to be attending, or just the time away. What does the message from one spouse to another, what is that message of we're going to invest in us? What does that say to each other?
Oh, I think it should speak volumes. I mean, it should scream, I love you. It should shout from the mountaintops to everyone around you that we care about each other. I think that's important, that the world knows, this is my one and only. This is my ride or die, as they say now, that, this person matters so much to me that I am going to use one of the wedding vows, forsake all others for this weekend. And we're going to focus just on our relationship.
Unfortunately, we live in a culture that, especially for whatever reason, I'm going to say the church, because that's our experience, is when you tell people you're going to a marriage conference, they're like, oh, what's wrong with your marriage? Right. And I think to be prepared for that and say, there's nothing wrong with our marriage. We believe in investing in our marriage and in each other. So we're going to take the time to get away and learn some tools that we can use, reset the marriage relationship, or just be refreshed in our marriage relationship. So unfortunately, we do live in a culture that they're like, oh, you're going to a marriage conference? Oh, what's wrong with you? And we don't want to, and as people, we want to be careful of that too. When people say to us, we're going to a marriage conference, or we're doing this, that, or the other thing for our marriage, be careful not to say, or, oh, there must be trouble in River City, whatever it might be.
So I wish I didn't know this information, Bill, but I do. We live in Michigan, and the average divorce lawyer costs $10,000. The average, and that's per person. Okay, yeah, that's per. So like if I, and this won't ever happen, I'll kill her first. But if I were to get a divorce lawyer, and Laura gets a divorce lawyer, there's $20,000.
No wonder such a big industry.
Exactly. But do you know how many years you could go on a fabulous getaway weekend for $20,000 and invest in your marriage? People don't want to invest $100 in their marriage, right, let alone, but they're willing, okay, but I'm going to spend 10 grand and she's going to spend 10 grand on divorce lawyers. So that's the importance. That's how important getting away and getting ahead. That's one of the things we say, get away and get ahead. And then finally, we are big proponents of marriage coaching, not just because we're marriage coaches ourselves, but because of what we've seen it do through other coaches around the country. We believe this: not every marriage needs a counselor, but every marriage needs a coach. If you look in the world of sports, you look at even the greatest players of all time, they all had coaches that were huge influences on their career.
And there's also a big industry for business coaches, for
Right.
speech coaches. I mean, there's, they're obviously in school, you have drama coaches, you have coaches for everything you can think of. But a coach points you back to the basics. And
Fundamentals.
that's why, the marriage coaching is so important, because it can point you back to the fundamentals, refresh your memory of the fundamentals of relationships and marriage coaching. And that's what our marriage coaching does, is it just refreshes you. It just gives you a reflection on back, here's where we've come and here's where we want to go. How do we get there? And gives you, reminds you of those tools and those fundamentals that you need to do that.
And what's so funny, Bill, as we've coached couples over the years, even couples who are in a bit of distress, okay, that we know when they've gotten to a place where we can't help them and they need counseling. But when they get to a point of distress that's, considerable, as we walk through the coaching process, they still both want the exact same thing. They don't see that they want the same thing, but they still want the exact same thing. As you rip away the pain and the hurt, we want the same thing. We want a happy, loving environment in our home and in our marriage. And so coaching can be a real good way to get those fundamentals back and discover the new you.
Yeah, we have seen a huge surge in demand for general mental health counseling, especially throughout and after COVID. Has there been a similar spike in demand for marriage coaching and counseling? Is that also, is it hard to find somebody and hard to find the time, or what are you hearing from that realm?
Because of COVID, I would say, what I've heard from my friends who are counselors, not necessarily just marriage counselors, but mental health, is that the demand is high.
Huge.
The demand is high, sometimes to the point that they can't keep up. I think one of the good things that COVID allowed this industry to do is to put it online. You can get counselors that you can Zoom online, so you don't have to go to their office, because sometimes it's depending on where you live in the country and your town and your community, you may not have, here where we live, we do not have, in our small town, we do not have a Christian counselor. We have some mental health counseling, but we don't have a Christian counselor that we would recommend people to. Now we do in the town north of us, and we recommend people there all the time. But so depending on where you live, but because of COVID and the onset of Zoom, you can get a lot of that online. Our coaching is online. We can do coaching online privately with Jay and I, or you can just buy the program and go through that yourself. So a lot of counseling,
and I think that's the norm for most coaches,
for most coaching settings. And but again, counseling is available online, and you just have to, again, one of the websites that we recommend people go to is Focus on the Family and the
AACC.net, American Association of Christian Counselors.net.
And they can tell you if there's someone in your area.
They've actually got a little place where you can plug in your zip code, and they will show you, within 30 miles here, the different Christian counselors. And honestly, some folks are at that point they have slipped so far down the hill that they do need a counselor, that they do need a professional licensed counselor who's going to walk them through the arduous but joyful process of reconciliation. And that is our hope for every marriage, that the new year would bring new reconciliation and new hope for your marriage.
So we talked about investing in your marriage a little bit. We talked about retreats and conferences. So as we now sit here in January, there are couples listening who think that is a great idea. We want to put that on our 2024 to-do list. So why don't you kind of hit the highlights about the Celebrate Your Marriage conferences or other opportunities that you have. It's clearly too late for folks to come on the cruise with you that is taking place in January, but I know that events like that pop up on your calendar throughout the year.
One of the exciting events that we've added this year is a one-day event It's in January, so there's still time to get involved.
The end of the month.
It's at the end of the month. We are limiting it to 20 couples. We think we have a couple spots left. It's called Next Level Marriage. Celebrate your marriage next level. And it's a day where we are going to walk you through a process. The first part of the day, you're going to just not like us very much because we're going to deconstruct your marriage. But then the second half of the day, we're going to become your best friends because we're going to help you put on paper your hopes and dreams and aspirations together as a couple. That's in January. You can find that on our website. Of course, every year, May and October, we do our Celebrate Your Marriage conference at Grand Hotel. It's funny because when we first started this back in 96, I actually was on Mackinac Island in 95 doing a business conference. And I said, man, if there's ever a place we could do a marriage conference, why would we not do it at the most romantic place? If not in the United States, perhaps the world. And it's amazing because we really are, it's called Celebrate Your Marriage for a reason. No matter where you're at in your level of marriage, whether you're an 8 or a 6 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10, we're going to help you celebrate. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget one time we got a letter from a man who said, I filed for divorce, or I had the papers in my hand going up to Mackinac. But I went to Mackinac because my in-laws paid for us to go. I sat in the first session, and within 5 minutes, I turned to her and I said, you didn't tell me what kind of conference this was going to be. And he said, by the end of that first session, he was holding her hand. And it's because we remind couples of the promises that God has made to give us a hope and a future as a couple, to celebrate that, to rejoice in that, even when you're on the brink of divorce, to say, with God's help, we can make this happen. And we do that every year in May and October.
Every May and October. And it's not just Jay and I. We try and bring in special guests. In 2024, we have Gary Thomas, who is going to join us in May. He's the author of Sacred Marriage, and he has a new book out called Making Your Marriage a Fortress. And then in October, I'm really excited about this because this is the first time we've done anything this out of the box. We have an illusionist. He and his wife will be talking about how to put the magic back in your marriage.
And he wrote a book entitled, No, I Can't Make Your Wife Disappear.
And then also every January, we do a marriage cruise, but it's always at the 1st of January. Actually, we will be leaving for that in just a couple of days. And so,
but if they want to know where we are in the country, if we're going to be close to them, they can check out our website and find that information on our events page.
Very good. Well, our website here is marriagetalk.org, but you can also find a link there or go directly to jayandlaura.com. Good stuff as we get ready to kick off this new year, and we're in that resolution mindset. So might I encourage you all to be resolved to do things above and beyond perhaps what you've done before, all for the purpose of strengthening your relationship. And we appreciate you listening and watching on our YouTube channel. Please share the link to however you're consuming Marriage Talk with other couples in your world, and we'll continue to grow this family that takes part in these conversations each and every week. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.